Hi everyone, I'm Dina Proctor, author of Madly Chasing Peace and creator of 3 by 3 Meditation. I am inspired to share today. I want to talk a little bit about the idea that our thoughts become things, that if we hold a negative thought, it's going to create a negative reality in our lives. Because I feel when we are getting to the point of really understanding law of attraction, understanding how powerful our thoughts, our emotions, and emotions are in creating our world, it can lead us to a place of being afraid of negative thoughts or kind of trying to dissect how exactly that works. And I have a really good example from my own life that I love sharing, and I'm hoping that this gives a little bit of insight. I know it's helped me to remember this as an analogy, or to be able to kind of put it on top of whatever I'm experiencing right now, so I can remember exactly how all of this works. The most important premise that I think we sometimes forget is that the emotion, how we are feeling about what we are thinking, is more important than the thought itself. It's the emotion that indicates what we are creating, not necessarily the thought. So, the example that I want to give, and if you've read my book, you'll know this example, is when I worked in my old day job a few years ago, I had stolen money. And I felt like I was underpaid. I was in my sickness and my, kind of really, really disconnected human being. And I was not doing great things in my life. And I was stealing from people. I was stealing money. And when I went through and made amends for stealing that money from my old job, I was terrified that I was going to go to jail. That was why this was a deep, dark secret that I wasn't going to tell anybody. I had so much shame about doing it. And, I felt like I was a bad person. Nobody in my life knew that that was something I had done. And when I thought about going back and kind of giving them back the money and making amends for it, the biggest thing that stopped me was I was so afraid of the consequence. I was afraid of going to jail or getting punished, or even worse than that in my mind was the people in my life finding out about it, the people finding out that I had done that. So where I found my peace with it, where I was able to make amends, was that in my meditations, I was doing my 3-minute, 3 times a day meditations. I was visualizing the possibility of going to jail, because that was very real. That could have really happened because of, as a consequence of stealing money from a company. You could go to jail for that. So I pictured what I thought would be, worst case scenario, what I was really just wanted to confront that fear head on so I could dissipate my fear of it and come to a place where I realized, this is possible, and it wouldn't be wrong if that happened. And so if my going to jail, or being publicly exposed as a thief and a liar and everything, is going to be for my greater good, I'm okay with that. I did the crime, I'll do the time. That it just kind of felt like I wanted to have ownership that I had kind of done that. So in the meditations, I was picturing the metal handcuffs. I was picturing the sirens going down the street to pick me up and lead me to jail, letting everybody know what I had done, kind of in a public way. I pictured calling my family and my friends from the jail and telling them that I was being arrested and whatever was happening. So when I say this story, some people would think, why on earth would you picture that? Because your thoughts become things. You're pretty much guaranteeing that you're going to go to jail if that's what you're picturing so intently you can actually feel the metal handcuffs on your wrists, right? Well, not necessarily, because I didn't know law of attraction at the time that I was doing this. All I was doing was trying to get to a place inside where I could make peace with whatever consequence came of my behavior, because the consequence wasn't mine to choose, but I needed to find a place of peace where I could make peace with whatever was going to happen. So what I did in my meditations, and it only took me 4 days to go from being absolutely terrified and why did I even tell any of this, because now I'm obligated to go back and tell this job and reveal my deepest, darkest secret. So that was before day 1, and by the 4th day of just doing 3 minutes 3 times a day of this, picturing what I was visualizing as the worst case scenario, but finding a place matching that vision with a completely peaceful emotion behind it and underneath it, That only took me 4 days. So it gradually went over that 4 day period. The first couple meditations were really hard. It was really hard for me to do that. But by the end, it was like, I really am at peace. I could see that this could happen, and I could see that that would be the right thing. And that's okay with me. I'm owning this. I'm responsible for this. And it is not my decision to make on how this consequence will come down. So when I went to make the amends, I talked with my former supervisor, and it came down. One of the most beautiful words that were spoken to me that day you're not a bad person trying to be good. You're a sick person getting well. And I felt like that was a lot more compassion than I deserved at the time. And I wasn't punished. We just kind of kept it as a conversation between the two of us, and it didn't get any bigger than that. And when I left that conversation, the feeling of freedom that I had, that I did not have that secret anymore, I can't even describe to you that feeling of relief and of bliss, and just feeling so clean inside, so clean, so honest, so open, so just purified through that whole thing. But my point is that, because it seems like, well, I was picturing going to jail really, really intensely. Why didn't that happen? Because the emotion I had was one of peace, and the emotion will always trump the thought. So if you're struggling with a negative thought, it's, of course, thinking positive thoughts is way better than thinking negative thoughts, of course. But when you're in a place where you're struggling with it and it just feels like you can't shake this negative thought or whatever's going on, is if you can find a place of peace underneath it, really, kind of having the thought being like the storm on the surface of the sea, and you're the living creatures underneath in the deepest part of the ocean. Because even when there's a storm raging on the surface of the sea, the deepest part of the ocean is unaffected and is totally at peace. And so that's how I try to picture it, is, can I be the peaceful, what Eckhart Tolle calls the watcher, the awareness, the peacefulness underneath this whatever's going on that's stormy. And so just kind of keep that in mind, that it's not the content of your thoughts that's the most determining factor. It's how you feel. It's the emotion that you have when that thought is happening. And so if you think the thought, and then you have a trigger that's like an anxiety thing or a frustration or a fear, there's some work to be done, but it's emotional work. So when you get the emotion kind of in place and you feel that peace underneath it, it's my experience that then the negative thought, it's almost like it can't snow when it's 80 degrees out. The thought is a symptom of where my emotion is. So when I'm feeling that great emotion, those negative thoughts just, like the snow melts when it becomes 80 degrees. I don't have to battle it. I don't have to fight it. I don't have to constantly take my attention away from it. I just realize it's not there anymore. It can't be there because I'm feeling too peaceful inside for negative thoughts to really be occurring to me. So I love sharing that example because it is so powerful. It's one of the most profoundly impacting experiences of my entire life when that happened to me. So I hope that my experience is able to give you a little bit of insight and guidance along your path too. So thank you so much for joining me here today, and stay tuned. I will have more for you again soon. Take care.